6 Celsius. High teens, perhaps low 20s for some parts towards the north. There's more wet weather to come across northern Scotland through the end of the day. We are going to see some relatively high rainfall totals building up through today and into tomorrow, particularly around the northern and western Isles and the Highlands as well. Central, southern, eastern parts of Scotland drier here with a largely fine end to the day across Northern Ireland, and for England and Wales a fine picture too. Lots of clear skies through this evening, so some late sunshine, yes, but with that clear sky we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a drop overnight, away from the northwest where it stays quite cloudy and there will be some rain. Even across parts of Northern Ireland, cloud will push in as we head towards dawn, and we could see a bit of rain arriving here. Otherwise, yes, with that dry, clear weather, it is going to be a fresh night. Some rural spots in England and Wales could get as low as 4 or 5 Celsius tonight, so perhaps even a bit chilly for some of us first thing tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, yes, a fresh start to the day, but again lots of sunshine across England and Wales. Further north and west for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture. The heaviest, most persistent rain still across northern and western parts of Scotland, with those totals continuing to build up. In the southeast it's going to be hotter than today. We're seeing temperatures back in the high 20s. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M6 southbound is affected by a collision between junctions 31A and 31 in Preston South. The M4 eastbound has an obstruction at junction 4 in Heathrow. The M11 southbound has an incident at junction 14 in Girton. The A21 is closed after the A26. In Scotland, the M74 northbound has queuing between junction 1 in Kingston E and junction 1A in Polmadie Road. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Friday, the 7th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Cameron Walker and Olivia Utley.
British homes for British people. Kemi Badenoch wants to evict foreign nationals from social housing if the Tories win the next election.
Andy Burnham's ambitions for Britain are too small.
A rail nightmare. Train delays continue across the country after a major power outage in Manchester grounds Britain to a halt.
And elsewhere, early release outrage. The government has launched an urgent review over concerns grooming gang offenders could be released early from prison.
And Thetford tension soars because 2 more arrests have been made after 3 nights of anti-migrant protests in Norfolk, where a female police officer was seriously bitten.
And people in Mansfield are battling antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins because Mansfield has become an HMO hotspot. Steve Yen is the local Labour MP.
There are areas like this one in the town centre where it is more appropriate development compared to those difficulties that are created in residential streets.
Well, residents have been reporting HMOs popping up all over this former mining town, including this one right behind me, which has just been given permission to be converted into a 6-bedroom HMO.
Just hang around the 6-yard box and I just wait for the chance to stick it away. I'm a typical politician on the football pitch. I let others do all of the hard work and I'm just waiting for the glory up front.
So, less blokey and more wokey, please. Number 10 experts demand Andy Burnham stops being blokish on social media and becomes more like Sir Keir Starmer. Not quite sure that's a good idea.
Why get rid of him in the first place, then? And there are a few sore heads this morning after the huge celebrations in Essex for GB News' 5th birthday last night. Cameron Walker is one of them. I was very sensible, tucked up in bed last night.
5 great years! Happy birthday, GB News. We're the people's channel.
Oh, it was such a good time
It
last
looks
night.
amazing. I'm very jealous.
And it was brilliant seeing lots of you there as well, in person. We got to talk to you. We got to have photographs of a lot of you as well. A bar always goes down very well indeed. I think I got about 5 hours sleep, so I'm not doing too bad today.
I'm very impressed at how well you function on very little sleep. I love doing events with GB News viewers because so often everyone who comes in, we've had people here in the studio and everyone is so informed, so brilliant, and just give us such an interesting new perspective on the way we report the news. And I really love that about this channel, the way we actually get out there, speak to our viewers. It does feel like we all know each other, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the whole point was celebrating 5 years of GB News and what we love about Britain. And they said when we launched, because I was there at the launch, that we wouldn't last 5 minutes. Well, 5 years later, we're going strong, and here's to the next 5 years.
Well, hear to that. And we would love to hear what you think. If you were there, do let us know. Or if you want to tell us about what your views and comments on everything else we'll be talking about today, visit gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here is the 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. The Chief Constable of Norfolk Police has defended his force's actions in Thetford amid disorder in the market town over the past 3 nights. That's as further arrests were made after people attempted to storm homes linked to asylum seekers and police officers were assaulted. Rail commuters are being hit by a second day of disruption in northwest England and the Greater Manchester area. Hundreds of trains were delayed or cancelled because of a power failure at a Network Rail Communications hub in Manchester. And at least 7 people have died in Thailand after a teenage boy allegedly shot his grandparents and school teachers in Bangkok, according to authorities. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in the 9th grade, has also been found dead. He shot 26 rounds. 15 people have been injured. Those are the latest headlines. More at 10 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Cameron Walker and me, Olivia Utley.
Very good morning to you. And the Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals.
Yes, under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies.
Well, the move comes in a bid to free up housing for British people and reduce the nation's soaring welfare bill.
To speak to us now, we have the former Labour Special Advisor, Paul Richards. Paul, I mean, waiting lists for council houses, thank you, by the way, for joining us on Britain's Newsroom this morning. Waiting lists for council houses in the UK is now 1.3 million. And at the current rate of construction, that backlog will take about a century to clear. Surely something radical like this does need to be done pretty urgently.
I think Kemi Badenoch's the biggest plagiarist since that guy at Cambridge yesterday. She's stolen this policy lock, stock and barrel from Reform, and she's done that because she's rattled by Reform's rise in the polls and the fact that Reform is basically destroying the Conservative Party. But to your point about the policy itself, making 230,000 people homeless, forcibly evicting people may have been living in their homes for decades. People are working as nurses and in social care, possibly with kids as well, is a ridiculous policy. You've just been reporting on the spread of HMOs. Where do you think all these people in this balmy policy would end up? They'd end up in the private renter sector, and that would drive the need for more HMOs where people would have to live. And so it's an absolutely ridiculous policy that wouldn't work. The answer, of course, is to build more houses. And that's what the Labour government is endeavouring to do, to end decades of underinvestment and to build, baby, build.
The tenants aren't going to be automatically, under a Tory government, kicked out immediately. There's a 6-month leeway for them to move into private accommodation, but I do accept your point. On the house building specifically, Andy Burnham has pledged the major council house building programme, but there hasn't been much in the way of detail, and also the planning regulations, which is stifling this country, have not been updated. So, to Olivia's point again, to get rid of this backlog is going to take more than a century during this current building rate.
Well, I think you're going to see rocket boosters under the building rate because Andy Burnham knows full well that's the only way you're going to fix this problem, is that with a growing population and young people living at home till they're 30 and all of these situations that people are finding unacceptable, is to build. And you've got to let councils have more leeway. You've got to build on the sort of areas of the country which have been protected pointlessly hitherto by really rigorous planning laws, and you need to let the builders build. And if you do that, by the way, you get economic growth, because we're going to need more brickies and chippies and sparks to do the actual work, more apprenticeships, more jobs in every postcode, more growth throughout the country, which is what Burnham has pledged to achieve as well. So I would say that the Conservative Party policy, aped from the Reform policy, is all about grabbing headlines in August, or what we used to call the silly season.
One moment.
The real answer is to build more houses.
Paul, I mean, I think we can all agree that building more houses would be a good idea. But another reason for this Tory and Reform policy, and I agree they are very similar, is that the vast majority of people who come here in small boats do end up claiming asylum and are then eligible for social housing in the UK. That is an enormous pull factor. That is a big reason why people are coming on small boats across the Channel. If you end that social housing allowance for people who have come here to claim asylum, then surely you stop the numbers of small boats, and that's definitely a good thing, right?
Well, asylum seekers are not eligible for social housing.
No, but those who've been granted asylum, of which 63% of small boat migrants are.
I think about 800 legitimate refugees are currently in social housing, but obviously 9 out of 10 social homes go to British-born people who are in need of the housing. Asylum seekers don't get automatic housing; they get
those who've been granted asylum do.
They're being put in camps or in the hotels that we're trying to close down, but they're certainly not given a council house, and that's a myth, isn't it, as you well know?
No, but the vast majority of people who come here on small boats are granted asylum, and then they are eligible for social housing. That's the point I'm making.
But the backlog and the pressure on social housing is from British people who are in need of that social housing because of spiralling rents in the private sector. It's not because of refugees, it's because we haven't built enough houses over the last 50 years.
Well, if there are 280,000 people who would, you worry, be made homeless and I think would probably just go into the private rented sector, then surely there are quite a lot of people who you're talking about. I mean, you can't say on the one hand that it's not a problem for refugees and also say there's 280,000 people living in these homes. Which one is it?
Well, these are not refugees. These are people working in social care, people who are nurses, Filipino nurses working in the National Health Service, all kinds of people contributing to our society. Like I say, some of whom have been in those homes for decades, who are going to be forcibly evicted, and it may take 6 months, but that's not very long, is it, if you have to find a place? And you'll both know that the pressure in the private rented sector is absolutely absurd at the moment, with spiralling rents, and it's very hard to get a flat, and gazundering and gazumping and all the rest of it. Young people particularly suffering from the inability to get a flat. And so all that would do under the Conservative plan is to shove 200,000 people into that market, which is already overheated, put rents up for everybody else, and make supply less available. It's just a balmy policy. It doesn't stack up with the first bit of scrutiny. It falls down. I understand why the Tories are doing it, because they are worried about reform on their right, and they also want to distract from yesterday's fiasco over Joshua Bonehill Payne and the neo-Nazi. They tried to make a Tory councillor, and they've promoted him to be an advisor instead. But if you look at the policy in any kind of detail, any dispassionate view of this is to say this would not work. It's an absolute nonsense.
As you alluded to, Paul, 230,000 non-EU foreign national households would be required, estimated, to leave social housing under this policy. The fact is that building more social houses is not a short-term solution. This isn't something that's going to happen within a year or so. So you might think that to ease the burden even slightly from that 1.3 million who are currently on that social housing waiting list, this could potentially be a short-term solution, but of course not the silver bullet. What would you say to people who make that argument?
Well, I think you have to look at the numbers and just decide that if you start to move people out of social housing, they're going to go back into private rented sector, which is where the people we're talking about who are languishing on the waiting lists are waiting. So it doesn't actually fix the problem for anybody. It just creates, a turmoil in the system, which doesn't solve the problem. I agree that the planning is too slow, and I agree the rate of building is too slow, and that's why the government has to put rocket boosters under that to fix it, and not just in London and in the southeast, but throughout the country as well. But this is just a gimmick, honestly. It is just a way for the Tories to lay down some smoke across the battlefields, because they've had a really bad day yesterday, and to grab some headlines off reform. But it's not a workable policy, and we surely are in the business of actually fixing these problems, not generating headlines.
I mean, there are people, lots and lots of people, I've met lots of them, young British families who are spending, in some cases, up to 3/4 of their income on rent in the private rented sector, really struggling to pay their bills, etc. And for them, they may not see this as a gimmick. They'll see it as a matter of just basic unfairness. People who weren't born here coming over here and getting to live much more cheaply than they are. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that 9 out of 10 people in social housing are the people you're describing. So, 90% does go to British-born people. It's allocated on the basis of need, which I think is the right thing to do. So particularly single people who are in need of the housing may well get it. But if they're being ripped off in the private sector, I would point to what Labour's done to protect renters' rights. And I would argue that the way for their rents to stay at the current level is to not have a huge influx of people who would then put the rents up because of the increase of demand and the limited amount of supply. Basic economics, isn't it? And so actually this policy would make those people's lives worse off because the rents would be going up. And so I just think it falls to pieces under the smallest amount of scrutiny. And what Helen Whately is thinking, I don't know. I thought she was a fairly decent mainstream Conservative sort of person who's the minister, the shadow minister, announcing all this stuff. I think she just needs to give her head a wobble.
OK, former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, thank you for joining us. I mean, the Reform, Olivia, the Reform have criticised the Tory plan, calling it a weaker copy that still allows some foreign nationals, from their policy, of course, kicking them all out after 3 months.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Paul was saying there that it's assessed based on need. It is assessed based on need right at the beginning, but once you've been granted as an accommodation in social housing, you are never reassessed. So some people who've been living there for a very long time are actually in the sort of top quartile of earners in this country, which seems extraordinary to me. I think we need to rethink the whole system.
And even if it's not that silver bullet solution, the fact of the matter is there is a perception in this country that foreign nationals are ahead of the queue from above certain British citizens, and that isn't going away anytime soon.
Do let us know what you think about that. But still ahead, we'll have the latest from Thetford in Norfolk, where there have been 3 nights of violent anti-migrant protests.
And up next, people in Nottinghamshire are battling a rise in antisocial behaviour and fly tipping since an explosion of houses in multiple occupation.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Charlie, as most of the viewers know, I would be involved in agriculture. This isn't quite agriculture. It's quite close to it, the cousins of. A lot of things that go on in agriculture are on display here. Thousands of people coming to this site, Ragley Hall, just about 45 minutes out of Birmingham.
We are the modern ruralists, and here today we have the craft yard. We've got 9 different crafts, all demonstrating what they're up to. Here we have the wheelwrights, and they're bonding a wheel here. So this is an ancient craft that's been going for about. Barney Murray's a bit of a legend, quite frankly. He's the national champion, master dry stone waller, comes from North Wales, and he's a bit of a Thor lookalike. So he's quite popular.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, at 16 minutes past 8, the annual bike ride from Yorkshire to London is taking place today, aiming to honour the legacy of the Batley and Spen Labour MP Jo Cox, who was murdered by a far-right terrorist in June of 2016.
Well, the bike ride aims to champion a cause she was passionate about, as this year marks the 10th anniversary of her tragic death.
Kim, if we can just start with you, what is your sister's legacy?
Well, there's so much that we've got to be proud of that's been done in Jo's name. It's just been 10 years since she was murdered, and what has kept us going as a family has been the way that so many amazing people, including people like this amazing man, have done things in Jo's name to show what our country is really about. And you've got all these amazing people today from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, celebrating the things that we have in common, not agreeing on everything.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't think I would at this rate, because I think the government tracks, when we say we're fighting for Britain, what are we actually fighting for? The concept of Britain, I don't think exists anymore. When I look at Britain, when I go outside, it doesn't seem to be very British. And I think the core demographic of the people who would normally fight, these white working class boys who, you know, have been fighting for Britain, who we expect just to sacrifice their life in a fight, you know, they've been demonised for decades and decades by the government, by our education system, by the media. Economically, they've been disadvantaged. So why would we expect them to risk their lives when we've demonised demonised them for so long and took them for granted for so long. And this concept of Britain fighting for the British government, you know, the British government has betrayed us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It is 10 to 10. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
And Mansfield in Nottinghamshire has been nicknamed the HMO hotspot because so many family homes have been converted into houses of multiple occupation.
Well, now the local Labour MP, Steve Yem, is calling for a crackdown as complaints about antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins are on the rise.
GB News national reporter Sophie Reaper joins us from Mansfield. I mean, Sophie, obviously there is a lot of anger in Mansfield over this. Why has it become such a hotspot?
Well, that's a really good question, and good morning to you. I just want to introduce you to this market town of Mansfield that we're in this morning. In fact, next year they're going to be celebrating 800 years of being granted that market town status by King Henry III. It's got a rich history, this town, of textiles, of markets, and, of course, of mining. This statue here symbolises the regeneration of Mansfield in the 2000s. So lots of rich history here in this town, but as you rightly say, in the past few months, this town has now become known as an HMO hotspot. Just about a mile away from us, there's a cul-de-sac near the town centre here in Mansfield, where 8 out of 10 of the properties there have been converted into HMOs or flats. And this building right here behind us, which used to be a bar in the town centre, has just been given permission for the bottom half to become shops and the top to become an HMO for 6 people. Now, this morning, we got a chance to speak to the Labour MP for this area, Steve Yem. He's calling for a crackdown on the number of HMOs being allowed to open here in Mansfield. I asked him what he's doing to support local residents.
Well, look, the really important thing, I think, is that we have more stringent planning controls over the development on those residential streets. And there are things that local authorities can do. They can adopt what's called an Article 4 direction. I've been calling on the council here in Mansfield to do that. It means that every one of those HMO developments on a residential street will need specific planning permission, even when they're small HMOs with just a few people in them. Right now, without that, they don't need that permission. I'm saying that the council should adopt that Article 4 direction and should make use of that planning control.
And what's really interesting is that Steve there was saying that HMOs like this one here behind me are more appropriate because they're away from local residents' homes, whereas the one that I mentioned, the cul-de-sac, where 8 out of 10 have become HMOs, he says that is absolutely something that should not be happening, and he's going to be working with the council, and he's spoken about this in Parliament, to try and stop this from happening again.
Well, thank you, Sophie Reaper, and we'll have more from Sophie throughout the programme. Still ahead, Burnham the Bloke, number 10 experts are fed up of the Prime Minister's blokish behaviour and want him to be more like Keir Starmer. What was the point of getting rid of Keir Starmer then?
It's like a pretty stupid idea to me, considering Starmer's approval ratings compared to Andy Burnham's currently, although how long will that last?
How long will it last? Already beginning to sink, isn't it? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll keep talking about pubs, we'll see. Well, more coming up at the top of the hour. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome to your GB News weather update, coming to you from the Met Office. Now, there is some rain again across northern parts of Scotland today, but further south it's another dry day with lots of sunshine on offer. We just need to watch out for a few showers across western parts of England and Wales at the moment. They will push a little bit further eastwards this morning before largely fizzling out. So then by the afternoon, mostly dry for England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern parts of Scotland. Much wetter across central and northern parts of Scotland with some blustery winds as well. Temperatures are generally going to be up a degree or so compared to yesterday in the southeast. We're looking at highs of around 25 or 26 Celsius. High teens, perhaps low 20s for some parts towards the north. There's more wet weather to come across northern Scotland through the end of the day. We are going to see some relatively high rainfall totals building up through today and into tomorrow, particularly around the northern and western Isles and the Highlands as well. Central, southern, eastern parts of Scotland drier here with a largely fine end to the day across Northern Ireland, and for England and Wales a fine picture too. Lots of clear skies through this evening, so some late sunshine, yes, but with that clear sky we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a drop overnight away from the northwest where it stays quite cloudy and there will be some rain. Even across parts of Northern Ireland, cloud will push in as we head towards dawn and we could see a bit of rain arriving here. Otherwise, yes, with that dry, clear weather, it is going to be a fresh night. Some rural spots in England and Wales could get as low as 4 or 5 Celsius tonight, so perhaps even a bit chilly for some of us first thing tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, yes, a fresh start to the day, but again, lots of sunshine across England and Wales. Further north and west for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture. The heaviest, most persistent rain still across northern and western parts of Scotland, with those totals continuing to build up. In the southeast, it's going to be hotter than today. We're seeing temperatures back in the high 20s. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M23 southbound has an incident between junctions 8 and 9 in Reigate. The M25 anti-clockwise is affected by a collision between junctions 3 and 2 in Darenth. The M11 southbound has an incident at junction 14 in Girton. The M6 northbound has an obstruction between junctions 17 and 18 in Congleton. In Scotland, the A90 is closed in both directions at Ellon after a collision. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 10 a.m. on Friday, the 7th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Cameron Walker and me, Olivia Utley.
British homes for British people. Kemi Badenoch wants to evict foreign nationals from social housing if the Tories win the next election.
Andy Burnham's ambitions for Britain are too small.
Friday rail nightmare. Train delays continue across the country after a major power outage in Manchester brings Britain to a halt.
And early release outrage. The government has launched an urgent review over concerns grooming gang offenders could be released from prison early.
And Thetford tension soars. 2 more arrests have been made after 3 nights of anti-migrant protests in Norfolk, where a female police officer was seriously bitten.
Yeah, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police says he absolutely refutes the claim that his officers had been too aggressive. This morning we're live at one of the properties in Thetford where disorder took place.
And people in Mansfield are battling antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins, possibly due to it being an HMO hotspot. Steve Yem is the local Labour MP.
There are areas like this one in the town centre where it is more appropriate development compared to those difficulties that are created in residential streets.
Just hang around the 6-yard box and I just wait for the chance to stick it away. I'm a typical politician on the football pitch. I let others do all of the hard work and I'm just waiting for the glory up front.
And less blokey, more wokey. Number 10 experts demand Andy Burnham stops being blokish on social media and becomes more like Keir Starmer.
Ridiculous. And there are a few sore heads in the office this morning. Not me, I hasten to add. But this morning yesterday we had a huge celebration in Essex for GB News' 5th birthday.
5 great years! Happy birthday, GB News. We're the people's channel.
Spot Andrew Pearce dancing in the background of that shot.
I was just thinking, let's not bring our presenters on Strictly. Not the best dancing, but they look very cheerful.
Yes, well, I was at the side of the stage, kind of doing a little bit of a jig, and then luckily, to my left on the table was a spare GB News Union flag, so I just picked it up and then started waving it, which gave me an excuse not to dance. Yeah, I hadn't had enough drinks to do that, so... but it was great fun. It was lovely seeing lots of you there, so thank you for coming if you made it down. And we had people travelling, Olivia, from across the country. There were some people from Scotland, we had Manchester, Pembrokeshire, I think, as well, so right over. And it was just a great celebration of GB News and celebrating the best of Britain, because there's a lot of horrible news at the moment, isn't there? But it's really nice to celebrate what is great about this country. And GB News has been there for the last 5 years, and here's to the next 5.
Well, hear to all of that. Do let us know if you were there, what you made of it all, or let us know your thoughts on everything else we're talking about today. HMO Britain, those protests in Thetford. If you're involved or if you know anyone who's involved, please do get in touch. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay.
But first, here is your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. The move comes in a bid to free up housing for British people and reduce the nation's soaring welfare bill. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News.
Foreign nationals, if they're choosing to live in the UK, should be contributing to the UK economy. They shouldn't be claiming benefits and they shouldn't be living in social housing, which is limited. There's a limited supply of social housing, and that should be there, like the welfare system, as a safety net for British citizens. So what we're saying for foreign nationals who are currently living in social housing is instead you should do what, to be clear, the majority of the population of the UK do, which is find your own accommodation and pay your own way.
The Chief Constable of Norfolk Police defended his force's actions in Thetford amid disorder in the market town over the past 3 nights. He said across 3 consecutive evenings, a group of people have crossed the line as to what is acceptable, and we have been appropriately policing those behaviours. Well, that's as further arrests have been made after people attempted to storm homes linked to asylum seekers, and police officers were also assaulted. 2 men were arrested yesterday following disorder in the market town. One was arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred related to events on Wednesday. The other was on suspicion of being drunk and disorderly and failing to provide details to police when asked. This came after officers were subjected to significant aggression, with one hit with a rock and another bitten and spat at. The senior investigating officer in PC Andrew Harper's case says he's appalled that 2 of the killers will become eligible for early release. 28-year-old PC Harper died from catastrophic injuries in 2019 when he was dragged behind the getaway car of 3 teenagers who fled the scene of a quad bike theft. 2 of his killers, Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, will be eligible for early release next year under revised government plans to tackle prison overcrowding. PC Harper's widow, Lissy Harper, has been among a growing number calling for Cole and Bowers to be denied early release. Elsewhere, at least 7 people have died in Thailand after a teenage boy allegedly shot his grandparents and schoolteachers, according to authorities. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in the 9th grade, has also been found dead. He shot 26 rounds, 15 people have been injured. One witness recalls how the suspected shooter walked from room to room before shooting a teacher. Rail commuters are being hit by a second day of disruption in northwest England and the Greater Manchester area. Hundreds of trains were delayed or cancelled because of a power failure at a Network Rail Communications hub in Manchester. While that was getting fixed, a grass fire broke out beside one of the runways at Heathrow Airport, causing diversions, delays and cancellations. In other news, Meta, the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, has been ordered to pay £421 million to address the harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge said the social media giant is a public nuisance akin to air pollution, and it must put the money in a fund aimed at reducing future harms. The ruling's in addition to the $280 million in fines Meta was already ordered to pay in the case. The judge compared Meta to a factory with advertising and content as its product, and the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children to be pollution that must be abated, they said. A spokesman for Meta also says, "We disagree with the ruling and will appeal." And European teams could still boycott competitions, including the World Cup, as UEFA says FIFA's defence of its president Gianni Infantino changes nothing. The English FA has sent a letter withdrawing its support for Infantino in reaction to the plan to sell off stakes in the World Cup to private investors. European governing body UEFA said in a statement its conditions had not been met despite Infantino's plan being aborted. Those are the latest headlines. More from me in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Cameron Walker and Olivia Utley.
Well, a total of 5 people have been arrested after a third night of disorder linked to anti-immigration protests in the Norfolk town of Thetford.
Yes, a female police officer was seriously bitten. Yes, you heard that right. While crowds allegedly tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers following damage to properties the previous night.
Well, police have now stepped up their presence and introduced additional powers in the town. And this morning, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police defended his force's actions as some accused his officers of acting too aggressively.
Well, we're joined now by GB News' national reporter, Jack Carson, who is live from Thetford. Jack, I mean, what's the aftermath of all of this, and could we expect further disorder tonight?
Well, of course, that is what Norfolk Police will be looking towards in terms of their planning over the next few hours or so as we head into the weekend, where more protests and possibly more disorder could take place that we've seen here in Thetford over the past 48, 72 hours or so. They'd put in special orders over the past evening to be able to disperse and arrest people who were refusing to reveal a face covering or leave leave an area that the police believe they should leave from. We're here in the part of Thetford where a couple of hundred people gathered on Wednesday, and it's where we know that disorder took place. Have a look at this property here, which you can see has been smashed on the windows, eggs smashed on the windows. You can see the eggshells and the yolk that has dripped down off those windows when this disorder was taking place. This is where police say they made 2 further arrests of men in their 40s. They say the first was arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred. They also say the second man was arrested on suspicion of being drunk and disorderly and failing to provide his details to the police when asked. It's also where eyewitnesses and social media users have condemned the police response to disorder and protesting that took place on this street on Wednesday evening. There were reports that a woman in a mobility scooter was pepper sprayed. A police spokeswoman said that they understand the concerns have been raised about that woman using a mobility scooter who was affected during the incident, saying that it was not the intention for a bystander to be impacted. However, if people remain within the area of active disorder and do not follow police instructions to move, they have a risk where they may be affected by the tactics deployed by the police. Those tactics, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police, Paul Sanford, has said he absolutely refutes any claims that officers have been too aggressive, saying that they have been firm, but he thinks his officers have done a fantastic job. Now, further south of where we are, south of Thetford Town Centre, more disorder took place as early as Tuesday, where one house was smashed up. We spoke to the neighbour of that house, Lorraine, about what she saw and how she feels about the idea of that property allegedly having asylum seekers moved into it. Here's what she told us.
Heard stuff before I went to bed, let the dogs bark, because that's what I do, and then went to bed and took my hearing aids out, and to be fair, I don't hear a great deal. But no, I didn't hear that much. I didn't hear the window smashing. The next thing I knew was the police were knocking on my door saying, could they look at the doorbell camera?
Yeah.
So no, I didn't hear a humongous amount of hassle.
Yeah, that's Lorraine there, who lives next door to that property that was smashed on Tuesday evening. She said that property had been empty for some time, but had been bought by a developer and changed into a house of multiple occupancy. Disorder then spread around Thetford, and you can see here there's eggs all the way as far up as the top window where these protests and disorder took place on Wednesday night here. That's where, as I said, the police made further arrests and where they say officers were injured. Of course, Norfolk Police now, as we head towards the weekend, planning for what could be more disorder after the extra additional powers they put in place last night ceased to exist in the early hours of this morning.
Jack Carson, thank you very much for joining us there. I mean, Olivia, it must be so scary for people like Lorraine, who you just heard in Jack's report there, who are just happen to be living next to these houses, and then these thugs just appear, and it's just so horrible for the local community, let alone the people who are there.
People like Lorraine who are just as upset about these houses being turned into HMOs as any of the people who are protesting. I mean, Andy Burnham said that he's going to end HMO Britain. He better crack on with that goal, because it does feel as though anger is just kind of bubbling below the surface about this issue all over the country, and there is a worry that similar things could spark elsewhere, isn't there?
And many communities do not want young men who've come across in small boats, who they don't know where they've come from, in their local communities. So it's a tricky one for the government.
It's a very tricky one, but hotels aren't a great option either. You just have to stop those boats. Easier said than done. But moving on to another difficult issue for Andy Burnham's government, because it is urgently identifying any grooming gang leaders who could be freed from prison early under the government's early release scheme.
Yeah, the Prime Minister has asked the Ministry of Justice to conduct an in-depth review to ensure grooming gang cases were identified.
About 5,000 prisoners are expected to be released early under sentencing changes in England and Wales to reduce overcrowding in jails. Well, we're joined now by international human rights lawyer David Hay. David, I think some of our viewers might be a bit confused by this story, because last week Andy Burnham said that those who were convicted of grooming gang offences wouldn't be released early from prison. Now the Times has revealed that actually quite a lot of them probably will. What's going on here?
Good morning to you both. I think, it's another example of a hopeless mess. And it's not just a hopeless mess, there's injustice here. And you've got child victims attached to it. Essentially, what this boils down to is that a new Sentencing Act has been passed. What that means is that whereas before, if someone had a sentence, they could be released early, subject to various things, perhaps after 50 to 40%. This now means that people can be released from their sentence after only serving 33%. Now, various offences are excluded from that. So murder, life sentences, rape, serious sexual offences. But the problem here that's happened, and this shows that the legislation wasn't properly put in place in the first time, is that if you've committed an act before the offence of grooming came into place, you were charged with a thing called indecent assault. And that hasn't been captured as an excluded charge. So that's the problem. So they haven't actually looked into what law they've passed. And first of all, we saw the Prime Minister, saying that we'll make sure that grooming gangs are actually included. But there are people that have been charged with indecent assault that haven't been included and that are due to be released. So you're looking at basically, because of an admin error, what they've been accused of, not what they've actually done, they're going to be released. And obviously that's really not acceptable.
Andy Burnham, of course, has personally intervened to ask the MOJ to conduct this in-depth review, possibly a hangover from the Starmer government. But there's a wider issue here, David, isn't there, that prisons are, the facts of the matter, completely full up. So there's been a bit of a failure from Conservatives and Labour in terms of not building enough prison places. So what can they do about it in the short term?
Well, I think that's the thing. They need to build capacity and not release predators and violent criminals. And, I think there'll be another area that they've failed to look at. The government is talking about being tough on people smuggling. People smugglers and certain immigration offences are not excluded either. So if someone's given a lengthy sentence for people smuggling, they could be out after a third of that. And again, that doesn't tally with what the government is telling us about getting tough on people smuggling.
Well, exactly. And there's anger about grooming gang perpetrators being released early. There's anger about people convicted of manslaughter, the killers of Andrew Harper being released early. There's obviously anger about domestic abusers being released early. Basically, no one's happy with any part of the early release scheme. Do you think there's a chance that this becomes Andy Burnham's first big U-turn and he ends up scrapping the early release scheme altogether?
I think that that's one of the things that should be done. I don't see him doing it. From a political perspective, he maybe could. He can maybe blame the previous government, the previous Prime Minister. I don't think personally that someone that's committed offences should be getting out after 33% of their sentence purely because we haven't invested in building prisons and places. That's not what the justice system is for. At the end of the day, victims have human rights as well. And I think, as a human rights lawyer, we see too much protection on the abusers of people rather than the victims of the abusers. And I think that also needs to change.
David, even if the Prime Minister did U-turn and stop this early release scheme in its track, there aren't enough prison places, is the fact. So what would be the alternative in the short term before you can increase capacity?
Well, I think that's the problem. They don't have one. Unless they bring in some kind of temporary a way that they can actually hold prisoners. There simply hasn't been, for a very, very long term. You can't just blame this government, but many governments before haven't invested in the prison service. And that's the problem that we've got now. We've got an absolute problem with capacity. It's full to overflowing. And that's the problem. And that's not an easy fix, Cameron. You can't just build a prison and it be ready tomorrow. They need to invest in prisons as they do in other areas. And I don't see a quick solution on this. And I think this is going to keep biting Prime Minister Burnham.
There's one school of thought, David, that some women's prisons should be converted into men's prisons to sort the problem in the short term. The argument behind that is that women are much less likely to be violent offenders. Women who are taken away from their children often end up in a cycle of crime. It's bad for the children, etc. And men, it's more necessary to lock men up. Lots of men obviously think this is a sexist and unfair policy idea. What do you think about that as a solution in the short term to the prison's overcrowding problem?
I think, Olivia, I think it's a novel one. I think they need to look at, doing things more permanently. And I know that's going to take a little bit more time. I mean, it may be an option for them to look at women's prisons, look at releasing people earlier, but they shouldn't be releasing people on grounds of their gender, just as they shouldn't be releasing people on grounds of their nationality or their colour or their religion. And I think that's not a route we want to start going down. I think, invest in the prison service, build more prisons, and don't release, dangerous people after 33% into the community where their victims live. It's just wrong.
David, just briefly, just over 10,000 foreign nationals are currently held in prisons in England and Wales, roughly 12% of the overall prison population. How difficult would it be for the government to deport all of those foreign criminals from our prisons back to where they came from?
That's a really interesting question, Cameron, because as you know, with the current laws that we have, if people don't want to get deported, depending on what they've done, depending how long their sentence is, and depending on what country they've come from, that can be very, very difficult. And it might take longer to deport some of them than it would be to build an actual new prison. And I'm not saying that lightly. So I think that's an option that they need to look at. Of course, we want to make sure, I think, that when people commit a crime, that they actually do serve a sentence and there is justice for the victims. And releasing people, whether they're foreign or English, work from the UK, living here, I don't think that's one of the only things that they should be focusing on. Build more prisons, sort out the structure, and all sorts of things with the prison service need to be resolved. And I think this is a real problem. It's going to keep coming back. And in all of this, obviously, you've got victims that are looking at people being released after serving only a third of their sentence, and that's just not acceptable.
Well, David Hay, thank you very much for joining us on Britain's Newsroom this morning. Cameron, I think one thing that's not talked about enough, yes, the early release scheme releases prisoners for 33% of their sentence. That's astonishing. But the median prisoner in the UK is released after half their sentence, and almost everyone is released after 2/3 of their sentences. Sentences have become pretty much meaningless in this country.
Well, it's absolutely ludicrous. And you look into the United States of America, and they have people serving their entire lives in prison on these huge mega prisons. But, of course, the United States of America has far more space and arguably not such strict planning laws in order to build more prisons. So it's a tricky one.
Well, exactly. Well, moving on, earlier this week, this is a response to this story. Earlier this week, Justice Secretary Alex Norris apologised to families affected by the early release scheme, saying they were carrying the can from previous failures.
And some breaking news to bring you now. England's footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Metropolitan Police investigation.
Yes, the 30-year-old was charged with causing actual bodily harm following an incident at a Soho nightclub. He will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday, the 24th of September.
The time is 22 minutes past 10, and it's time for the Great British Giveaway now, and your chance to, just 2 weeks actually left to grab your chance to win £60,000 in cash and a gold bar in our Golden Summer celebration. Here's Hayley Sparks.
Welcome to Orlis Santi by Domes Resorts. I'm in one of their beautiful sea view rooms. Luxurious, right? And there's just 2 weeks left to see how you too could be enjoying the 5-star lifestyle. There's over £65,000 in cash and gold to be won. First, you can bank an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. That's cash you could save, spend the rest of the year spending, or just relax somewhere like here, the award-winning Soma Spa. We'll also give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Just make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 21st of August.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, good luck indeed. Up next, we'll reveal how many student loans are dished out to foreign nationals and the likelihood of Britain ever getting that money back.
We'll be going through all of that and much more with Ben Bradshaw and Mark Fields. There they are, having a nice natter. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored. Very, very, very easy tonight on the unpredictable. What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're joined by former Conservative MP Mark Field and former Labour Minister Sir Ben Bradshaw. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Let's start with this potential fraud alert over loans to foreign students. What's this all about?
Well, I mean, actually, Ben and I were talking about this outside we're both baby boomers, so because we never had to worry about student loans in the way that the current generation do.
Lucky you.
Which is,
yes.
Well, I have to say I have 2 teenage children, so I suspect that car crash is about to come upon us as well. But it's a slightly overstated story in my view. The reality is we've had some reciprocal arrangements with some EU countries, and I suspect that insofar as there are those students from those countries coming here not paying their full whack, that will happen in reverse, and that therefore the money can be netted off to a certain extent. But I think the much bigger issue is the number of UK students who will end up either because they live abroad or because they won't ever earn enough money in their working life, who won't be paying the loans back. And the problem is this is a massive fiscal crunch that's going to hit, and ultimately it's going to be British taxpayers who are going to be footing the bill.
Well, But it absolutely is, isn't it? And there is a problem where there are people who are taking out student loans who are then going on to be relatively high earners, who are staying in the UK. Cameron and I, for example, fall into this category. And we end up paying back thousands and thousands and thousands more than we ever borrowed. And we're essentially subsidising the people who move abroad, who were never intending to stay in the UK anyway. That's a problem. And then further down the line, these debts will be written off and the taxpayer's going to end up paying.
Well, you're still supposed to pay your loan back, even if you move abroad. But I think, as Mark says, I think this story is a little bit overblown. And there may be an issue with Romanians. I thought the Romanian figure was rather out of kilter. There seems to be a particularly large number of Romanians. Yes. These are all people with settled status. And as Mark says, we have reciprocal arrangements with the rest of the European Union so that our students benefit in the same way. But clearly, if there's fraud going on in the system, then it needs to be investigated for the reasons that you outlined. It's not fair for domestic students who are paying back their loans in the way that you both are.
Yes, Romanians alone taking 1 in 20 full-time loans, and there is fears and concerns that a lot of these, not just Romanians, this is all of the foreign students, drop out of the course, but then continue to receive the loan they get with no intention of completing the course or indeed paying it back.
Well, and of course the other thing is there's very little incentive for universities to report this, because actually they want to keep their numbers up, and this is part of the problem here, that you've got a situation that is almost self-perpetuating to a large extent. But as I say, my instinct is that, although it's wrong and we should clamp down on fraud, and I understand your outrage on this, Olivia, but the truth is it's a relatively small sum compared to the much bigger sum that ultimately the UK taxpayer is going to be on the hook for.
Now, there seems to be some interesting advice coming into Andy Burnham's inbox about his social media content, which arguably has made him quite popular, discussing if it should be a bap or a bun or whatever, or going to a pub, deciding on his favourite flavour crisps and playing football. But is that making him too blokish? Because that's what some of his advisors are saying and telling him to tone it down a bit. Is this a nonsense story?
I think that Andy Burnham's kind of folksy blokesy approach has been rather effective. I mean, I've been
Isn't that basically the whole point of Andy Burnham?
Exactly. I mean, I think that I've been pleasantly surprised by how he's come across to the public. I mean, he does seem to have a gift to communicate in a way that comes across to people much more effectively than Keir Starmer did, for example. And I think if there are officials in the Cabinet Office trying to persuade Andy to be different, I think that is bad advice, because, I mean, authenticity in politics these days is so important. And, you know, if he's authentically interested in beer and football, and that's what he wants to post about, and people enjoy that and find it entertaining, that's fine with me. I know there are plenty of other ministers who can use their social media platforms to communicate about all sorts of other issues, but don't try to make Andy Burnham somebody he's not.
Yeah, I think you're right about authenticity, and as we often used to say, if you can fake that, you can fake anything. But, you know, there is an authentic sense. He is a good communicator, very strong communicator, and always has been. I think the slight danger is clearly he's also been a bit of a people pleaser. There's a sense in which he's probably never been quite tested, and certainly in his role in Manchester, never been tested to make the very difficult trade-offs that I'm afraid he's going to face on the fiscal front in the next few months. And there probably is just that sense that there is going to be a moment when he's going to have to seriously look the British public in the eye at a press conference, you know, suited and booted with a tie on, and therefore to get to this whole sort of too much of a blokish image. And I guess the other issue in mind is as well, I mean, as it happens, I'm a great football fan, and so when I hear about Keir Starmer and his love of Arsenal and obviously Burnham's love of Everton, I personally can rejoice with that. But a lot of people aren't that interested in football. There's also a bit of a sense, is it a bit of a boys' club that if you're talking about pubs and football alone, and I know that there are many women who enjoy football and go to pubs as well.
Yes.
But nonetheless, there's that sort of image, and at some point there may be a grinding halt, particularly, as I say, if things get a lot more serious in international affairs as well as on the economy, when he's going to have to take a slightly different approach.
Well, he's not even faced Kemi Badenoch yet, Prime Minister's questions. That's not happening for the next month, so we'll have to wait and see how he performs there.
Well, absolutely. I suppose part of this is that, you know, it's all very well chatting about football and pints on social media. It is a lot harder, as Mark and Ben were both saying there, to actually be scrutinised by the leader of the opposition. He's essentially had quite an easy run. Maybe that's the crux of this story, really.
Quite possibly. Well, let us know what you think on any of those. gbnews.com/your say. But on the student loans story that we were just discussing, a spokesperson for the Department for Education said we have strict eligibility requirements for student loans. Nobody who lives outside of the United Kingdom can apply for or receive a loan. Anyone leaving the UK must continue to repay what they owe.
Well, lots more after the break, but here is your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories this hour. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. More arrests have been made over disorder linked to anti-immigration protests that saw crowds attempt to storm the homes of suspected asylum seekers, and a police officer was seriously bitten. At least 7 people have died in Thailand after a teenage boy allegedly shot his grandparents and school teachers in Bangkok, according to authorities. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in the 9th grade, has also been found dead. 15 people are injured. And England footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Met investigation. The 30-year-old was charged with assault causing actual bodily harm, following an incident at a Soho nightclub. He'll appear in court on the 24th of September. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, up next, British homes for British people. How much difference would it actually make if Tory leader Kemi Badenoch's pledge to evict foreigners from social housing became a reality?
Stay with us. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome to your GB News weather update, coming to you from the Met Office. Now, there is some rain again across northern parts of Scotland today, but further south it's another dry day with lots of sunshine on offer. We just need to watch out for a few showers across western parts of England and Wales at the moment. They will push a little bit further eastwards this morning before largely fizzling out. So then by the afternoon, mostly dry for England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern parts of Scotland. Much wetter across central and northern parts of Scotland with some blustery winds as well. Temperatures are generally going to be up a degree or so compared to yesterday. In the southeast, we're looking at highs of around 25 or 26 Celsius. High teens, perhaps low 20s for some parts towards the north. There's more wet weather to come across northern Scotland through the end of the day. We are going to see some relatively high rainfall totals building up through today and into tomorrow, particularly around the northern and western Isles and the Highlands as well. Central, southern, eastern parts of Scotland drier here with a largely fine end to the day across Northern Ireland, and for England and Wales a fine picture too. Lots of clear skies through this evening, so some late sunshine, yes, but with that clear sky we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a drop overnight, away from the northwest where it stays quite cloudy and there will be some rain. Even across parts of Northern Ireland, cloud will push in as we head towards dawn and we could see a bit of rain arriving here. Otherwise, yes, with that dry, clear weather, it is going to be a fresh night. Some rural spots in England and Wales could get as low as 4 or 5 Celsius tonight, so perhaps even a bit chilly for some of us first thing tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, yes, a fresh start to the day, but again, lots of sunshine across England and Wales. Further north and west for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture. The heaviest, most persistent rain still across northern and western parts of Scotland, with those totals continuing to build up. In the southeast, it's going to be hotter than today. We're seeing temperatures back in the high 20s. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A21 is closed between junctions 8 and 9 at Leeds Castle. The M25 anti-clockwise is affected by a collision between junctions 3 and 2 at Darenth. The M61 northbound is affected by a collision at junction 9 in Preston. The M6 southbound is affected by a collision at junction 31 in Preston South. In Scotland, the A90 is closed in both directions at Ellen after a collision.
And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It is 10:38 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Cameron and Olivia.
Well, the Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals.
Yes, under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be banned from new tenancies.
Well, the move comes in a bid to free up housing for British people and reduce the nation's soaring welfare bill.
Well, former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster joins us now. I mean, Kevin, there is an argument, isn't there, that these 230,000 people who'd be kicked out of social housing will just end up in private tenancies and end up pushing up the price of those and making life worse for everyone who's renting. What do you make of that?
Well, it's an argument, but it misses the fact that social housing is heavily subsidised, particularly in central London. There'll be many people sat at home thinking there's no opportune chance they could realistically go and live somewhere like Westminster or Kensington and Chelsea. But if they qualified for a social house, having been granted refugee status, they'd be able to. So that's where I think a lot of this is targeted at. And it needs to be seen as part of a wider strategy that we're seeing coming out of Kemi Badenoch's leadership and the Conservative Party more widely, of looking to reduce the incentives to come here in a small boat. Now, last week, when we talked about the scenes in Ceuta, we talked about how the Spanish government hugely increased the incentive to illegally cross the border and reduce the chance of being sent home following a Supreme Court judgment in Spain. This is what this is ultimately targeted at. It's about making it less likely, and you get less when you come here as part of a wider strategy. This isn't a solution in its own right, but it does make a difference.
Kevin, Reform UK have accused the Conservatives and Kemi Badenoch of providing a weaker copy of their own plans. Do you think there's any truth in this? Because they're saying they would have done this, they announced a similar policy in June, where those foreign nationals would be kicked out after 3 months.
Well, I've heard Reform UK make a number of policy statements. I can remember one where they were going to remove it from everyone, and then within about 24 hours clarified that they respected the fact that EU settled status citizens. Those are people who came here before Brexit, to be clear. EU nationals would probably have to be allowed to stay due to reciprocal arrangements for British nationals in many parts of the EU. So, you know, I think we're all seeing parties reform, the Conservative Party very much wanting to try and deal with the issues in the Channel, recognising there's a big electoral need to do it. People want to see this problem dealt with. And if you're going to have an effective immigration system, you've got to be able to enforce the border. And even you've also seen Labour moving on. It'd be interesting to see if the government reacts on some of this, because it's quite clear Andy Burnham is facing very different political pressures in his own constituency in Makerfield. They voted heavily Leave than Keir Starmer did in his constituency in central London that was more leaning Remain.
I mean, Reform's policy would couple what you're doing with abolishing indefinite leave to remain altogether. That means that many, many more people would be evicted from social housing. Compared to that, your policy is just a drop in the ocean, isn't it? 230,000 families. There's a wait list of 1.3 million.
Well, let's start with some of Reform's policy. And by the way, Olivia, I don't act as a spokesperson for the Conservative Party. I'm still a member, but I'm not a spokesperson for it. In terms of the difference, abolishing ILR would, for example, is Reform going to abolish ILR for the Windrush generation? But what we're actually seeing, and what following Reform's announcement happened, is a lot of people with ILR have started to apply for British citizenship. And we saw quite a big number, I think a record number last year, applied for citizenship. I suspect that will happen again this year. And actually for both the parties announcing changes for those who are foreign passport holders, who have indefinite leave to remain, actually a lot are listening to this. They don't just sit there and do nothing. They are moving to get British citizenship.
The narrative from, well, Conservatives and Reform is that almost essentially you get all of these foreign nationals out of the social housing list and there's going to be enough houses going around for British citizens, which clearly is not the case because there's 1.3 million people on the housing waiting list, which housing charities warn could take more than a century to try and clear that backlog. So what should the Conservatives or Reform or whatever government's in power, frankly, needs to do in order to clear that backlog faster than a century?
Well, the key thing we need to do is reform our planning system. You know, we've been talking about prisons this morning, how long it takes to build a new prison. Similarly, with housing, it can take far too long, particularly in places like London and the southeast. And some of the recent housing targets set by the government, someone missed the point of it, that, you know, increasing housing targets in parts of the northwest or in parts of the southwest doesn't really deal with any issues around London and the southeast, even if they might miss a national target. So this, you know, you have to view this as part of an overall package. But in terms of getting consent, in terms of community consent for building homes, there does need to be that sense that they will go to people who need them. And this is something particularly in parts of London and the southeast that is grating people more and more. The idea that if you go to work, you work hard, you want to provide for your own family, the chance of you living within the M25 is getting less and less. Yeah, if you qualify for social housing, having arrived in a small boat and being granted refugee status, you might well get a property. You know, you're not going to get much consent at all for building of new homes if those are the types of outcomes being delivered, compared to what people want to see, which is, you know, people trying to get on in life, younger people trying to start a family. Big debate there about how we get more people doing that. A key part of that is going to be more access to housing.
Well, Kevin Foster, thank you very much for joining us on GB News. Well, Cameron, I'm sure Kevin's point will absolutely resonate with a lot of people watching this show. The issue is, I've noticed that ministers and MPs tend to say that we need to reform the planning system once they've left Parliament. When they're in Parliament, they're listening to the concerns of a small, very vocal band of people who say there shouldn't be building because they're worried about the view from their window, for example.
Yeah, the NIMBYs, not in my backyards, but unfortunately these NIMBYs tend to be the people who will go out and vote. Those who don't want to go out and vote tend to be the people who this kind of affects. But, you know, private landlords, as Lawrence has pointed out, good morning to you, Lawrence, it's a very long message, I don't have time to read it all out, I'm afraid, but he's essentially saying that the government is making it so hard for private landlords to actually rent out properties in good faith to decent tenants. They're put off by all the regulation that's been put on them, which means that these houses are just being released into the market, and then who knows what's going to happen to them.
Well, exactly. And if you are a landlord, please do get in touch with us, because I think there's a misconception in the government that all landlords are sort of evil people who own whole empires of housing, whereas actually lots of people own one small flat which provides them with their pension, and now they're not able to rent out that flat anymore because of all the masses of regulation that they are forced to follow. So please do get in touch if you are in that situation.
The government needs to wake up and appreciate private landlords, easing the burden on the housing crisis and stop penalising them, says Lawrence.
Well, up next, we'll have the latest travel advice after a major power outage in Manchester has caused chaos on the railways.
But if you are in some search of some holiday sun abroad, here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Yes, the Malaysian government has announced that it will renew the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which disappeared 10 years ago without a trace.
Yes, the plane was carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Previous attempts to locate the plane have all failed, leaving the families of those on board without any kind of closure.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to Terry Tozer, a former airline pilot and author of Confessions of an Airline Pilot, Why Planes Crash. Terry, you sound like the perfect man to talk to about this, because this is perhaps the biggest aviation mystery of our modern age.
Yeah, it is, and obviously a great tragedy as well.
It's good to know that they're going to have another crack at trying to find it.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is just health and safety gone mad. It's not the role of public authorities to be telling people what's for their best interest. And the reality is, it's probably better to take the chance of a tree branch falling on you than going out in the sun and getting getting burnt in the sun. But the reality is, the reason why these councils are saying you've got to stay out of underneath the trees is they don't want anybody to get struck by a branch which they have a liability to, whilst they don't have a liability for anybody getting sunburnt. So it's all to do with public liability. I mean, if you look at East Cheshire Council, for example, in 2024, they had to pay out £500,000 because a branch fell on somebody.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In my hand, I have a colander. I have a piece of paper. Yes, there you have one too. So I'm going to run it so you can see me. So I think what you do is you shine, you indicate, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it for you.
You never look at the sun directly.
Yep,
you
good.
allow the light to go through the colander, and that'll actually act as a pinhole camera and project images of the sun onto the piece of paper, and then you can look at the piece of paper and see the eclipse take place. Simple as that. You can do it also by using binoculars or a telescope and projecting an image through from them onto a piece of paper.
Yep.
That will work just as well. Or get a bucket of water, let it settle, and look in the bucket of water, and you'll see the image of the sun in the water, and then you can observe the eclipse that way.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It is 10 to 10. This is Britain's Newsroom with Olivia and Cameron.
Well, yesterday evening proved chaotic for tens of thousands of travellers, both commuters by rail and airline passengers.
Yeah, hundreds of trains were delayed or cancelled because of a power failure at a Network Rail communications hub, which only lasted 90 seconds and yet still caused all this chaos. And while they were getting that fix, a grass fire broke out beside one of the runways at Heathrow Airport.
Yes, that caused diversions, delays and cancellations, and the delays are still ongoing this morning. Travel expert Sally Gethin joins us now. Sally, what does the weekend have to hold for travellers who are hoping to get somewhere?
Yes, well, we're all looking at staycations in a bid to avoid some of the catastrophes in Europe at the moment with those fires. And yeah, the picture isn't great. So as you just said, massive problem yesterday affecting the northwest, most of the train operators like Avanti West Coast and Northern and so on. And that's still having a knock-on effect and will carry on throughout the day. Also issues between Cardiff and Newport in South Wales, incidentally, where I come from. So I understand the importance of that track as well. That's going to continue to present problems throughout the weekend. And also the RMT is taking action which will affect East Midlands Railway passengers from tomorrow. And in addition to that, there are some major track upgrades which have resulted in London Charing Cross being closed as well, and lines north of St Pancras being affected. So yeah, it is a very patchy picture at the moment.
Sally, I think a lot of people would struggle to understand how a 90-second power failure can cause such catastrophic disruption to the railway network almost across the country, or a huge amount of it. What is the issue with the infrastructure with such a short power failure can cause such widespread damage that goes on for hours?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a major failure to the signalling and electrical equipment, which is concentrated in this one centre. And this is what we're seeing, actually, sort of layered infrastructures now across all modes of transport. We've had it actually on the aviation front as well in the recent past. And as the infrastructure is taken away from localised areas, so signal boxes in the case of the railways, into this centralised structure. If it fails and the system reboot doesn't kick in quickly enough, and by the way, those system reboots have been taking place across that network, then this is what you find. You find that there isn't enough resilience, there isn't enough redundancy into that core new infrastructure.
Sally, what's your advice, just quickly, for any viewers who might be planning to travel by rail over the weekend?
So, yeah, obviously you have to keep up to date with news, and most of those rail apps, like the National Rail app, and many of those will instantly give you an update when you open those apps up anyway. So obviously you need to check that. But I mean, the good news, if there is good news about this, is
Sorry, Sally, having asked you that question, I've realised we don't have time for any more. But thank you very much for that helpful advice for GB News viewers. Still ahead, we'll have the latest in Thetford and lots more on migrant process. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite show on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome to your GB News weather update, coming to you from the Met Office. Now, there is some rain again across northern parts of Scotland today, but further south it's another dry day with lots of sunshine on offer. We just need to watch out for a few showers across western parts of England and Wales at the moment. They will push a little bit further eastwards this morning before largely fizzling out. So then by the afternoon, mostly dry for England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern parts of Scotland. Much wetter across central and northern parts of Scotland with some blustery winds as well. Temperatures are generally going to be up a degree or so compared to yesterday in the southeast. We're looking at highs of around 25 or 26 Celsius. High teens, perhaps low 20s for some parts towards the north. There's more wet weather to come across northern Scotland through the end of the day. We are going to see some relatively high rainfall totals building up through today and into tomorrow, particularly around the northern and western Isles and the Highlands as well. Central, southern, eastern parts of Scotland drier here with a largely fine end to the day across Northern Ireland, and for England and Wales a fine picture too. Lots of clear skies through this evening, so some late sunshine, yes, but with that clear sky we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a drop overnight away from the northwest, where it stays quite cloudy and there will be some rain. Even across parts of Northern Ireland, cloud will push in as we head towards dawn, and we could see a bit of rain arriving here. Otherwise, yes, with that dry, clear weather, it is going to be a fresh night. Some rural spots in England and Wales could get as low as 4 or 5 Celsius tonight, so perhaps even a bit chilly for some of us first thing tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, yes, a fresh start to the day, but again, lots of sunshine across England and Wales. Further north and west for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture. The heaviest, most persistent rain still across northern and western parts of Scotland, with those totals continuing to build up. In the southeast, it's going to be hotter than today. We're seeing temperatures back in the high 20s. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orlisanti by Domes Resorts, where we're celebrating with an incredible £60,000 to be won. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
It's 11 o'clock on Friday, the 7th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Karen Walker and Olivia Utley.
Well, British Homes for British People, Kemi Badenoch wants to evict foreign nationals from social housing if the Tories win the next general election.
And early release outrage. The government has launched an urgent review over concerns grooming gang offenders could be released from prison early.
And Thetford tension soars. 2 more arrests have been made after 3 nights of anti-migrant protests in Norfolk, where a female police officer was seriously bitten.
Yeah, in response to those protests and that disorder, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police says he absolutely refutes the claims that his officers have been too aggressive. He admits that they have been firm, but says his officers have done a fantastic job. We're here in Thetford, near one of the properties that was affected by this disorder.
Well, people in Mansfield, meanwhile, are battling antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins, partly because, presumably, it's an HMO hotspot. Steve Yem is for local Labour MP.
There are areas like this one in the town centre where it is more appropriate development compared to those difficulties that are created in residential street.
Well, while the local MP is calling for an HMO crackdown, local residents have told GB News they no longer recognise their hometown. We're here gauging reaction throughout the day.
And we're live in County Tyrone as an external review is launched into an incident in which 51 cattle were shot dead in a field in full public view.
A public outcry in Northern Ireland after videos and pictures emerge of 51 cattle being shot dead by the Department of Agriculture. The public were horrified and also tried to join in to stop the killings. The calls for the resignation of the Permanent Secretary, Chief Vet and Andrew Muir, the Minister, are now growing. We'll have more throughout the programme.
And Burnham the bloke, or as his advisors want him to be, perhaps woke. Number 10 experts demand Andy Burnham stops being blokish on social media and becomes more like Sir Keir Starmer. Well, that's going to go well. He better stop posts like this then.
Hang around the 6-yard box and I just wait for the chance to stick it away. I'm a typical politician on the football pitch. I let others do all of the hard work and I'm just waiting for the glory up front.
I thought the whole point of Andy Burnham is that he does these sort of natural, you know, whether you like it or loathe it, he has got a bit more of a way about him when he's communicating. He does seem like a bit of a social media natural. Surely the last thing we need is another Keir Starmer.
No, you don't want a robot doing those kind of videos, but I'm going to say it. It reminds me a bit of Nigel Farage, those videos.
I know
going
what
to
you
the
mean.
pub, man of the people, chatting about baps and pints and football and all the rest of it. But you know what? It's working for Andy Burnham because his opinion ratings, what is he now, the highest kind of politician in terms of approval ratings of one of the national parties. Meanwhile, of course, Starmer, when he was the Prime Minister, was just absolutely at the bottom. So why are these advisors telling him to stop these kind of videos? Because they're clearly working for him.
Well, exactly. I always found it really weird, by the way, with Keir Starmer, because he obviously genuinely was a really big football fan. He was a season ticket holder, etc., etc. But when he talked about football, he sounded really wooden and like he was completely faking it. Really, really strange. And I think Andy Burnham does have a much more natural way about him, but that's what we think. We'd love to know what you think. Please send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here is the latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories this morning. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. The move comes in a bid to free up housing for British people and reduce the nation's soaring welfare bill. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News.
Foreign nationals, if they're choosing to live in the UK, should be contributing to the UK economy. They shouldn't be claiming benefits and they shouldn't be living in social housing, which is limited. There's a limited supply of social housing, and that should be there, like the welfare system, as a safety net for British citizens. So what we're saying for foreign nationals who are currently living in social housing is instead you should do what, to be clear, the majority of the population of the UK do, which is find your own accommodation and pay your own way.
More arrests have been made over disorder linked to anti-immigration protests that saw crowds attempt to storm the homes of suspected asylum seekers, and a police officer was seriously bitten. 2 men were arrested yesterday following disorder in the market town. One was arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred related to events on Wednesday. The other was on suspicion of being drunk and disorderly and failing to provide details to police when asked. A total of 5 people have reportedly been arrested at this stage. And it comes after officers were subjected to significant aggression on Wednesday, with one hit with a rock, one bitten and another spat at. The senior investigating officer in the PC Andrew Harper case says he's appalled that 2 of the killers will become eligible for early release. 28-year-old PC Harper died from catastrophic injuries in 2019 when he was dragged behind the getaway car of 3 teenagers who fled the scene of a quad bike theft. 2 of his killers, Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, will be eligible for early release next year under revised government plans to tackle prison overcrowding. PC Harper's widow, Lissy Harper, has been among a growing number calling for Cole and Bowers to be denied early release. England footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Met investigation. The 30-year-old was charged with assault causing actual bodily harm following an incident at a Soho nightclub. He'll appear in court on the 24th of September. 9 people wounded in a school shooting in Thailand today are in a critical condition, the country's Prime Minister has said. 7 others have reportedly died. A teenage boy allegedly shot his grandparents and some teachers. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in the 9th grade, was also found dead. One witness recalls how the suspected shooter walked from room to room before shooting. Elsewhere, rail commuters are being hit by a second day of disruption in northwest England and the Greater Manchester area. Hundreds of trains were delayed or cancelled because of a power failure at a Network Rail communications hub in Manchester. While that was getting fixed, a grass fire broke out beside one of the runways at Heathrow Airport, causing diversions, delays and cancellations. Meta, the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, has been ordered to pay £421 million to address the harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge said the social media giant is a public nuisance akin to air pollution, and it must put the money in a fund aimed at reducing future harms. The ruling is in addition to $280 million in fines, which Meta was already ordered to pay in the case. The judge compared Meta to a factory with advertising and content as its product, and the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children to be the pollution that must be abated. A spokesman for Meta says, "We disagree with the ruling and we will appeal." And European teams could still boycott competitions, including the World Cup, as UEFA says FIFA's defence of its president, Gianni Infantino, changes nothing. The English FA has sent a letter withdrawing its support for Infantino in reaction to the plan to sell off stakes in the World Cup to private investors. European governing body UEFA said in a statement its conditions had not been met, despite Infantino's plan being aborted. Meanwhile, Mexico and Argentina have expressed their support for Gianni Infantino. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Cameron Walker and me, Olivia Utley.
Very good morning to you. And Mansfield in Nottinghamshire has been nicknamed the HMO hotspot because so many family homes have been converted into houses in multiple occupation.
Now, the local MP, Steve Yem for Labour, is calling for a crackdown as complaints about antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins are on the rise.
Well, GB News' national reporter Sophie Reaper joins us from Mansfield. Good morning to you, Sophie. What's the reaction been from locals?
Well, good morning to you both. I think there's a sense of shock. I think there's a sense of outrage. Some residents telling us that they no longer recognise their hometown. Now, of course, this is not a problem isolated only to Mansfield. It's a UK-wide issue. We've seen, thanks to a Freedom of Information request, that the proportion of HMOs has increased by 40% in the past few years. But, as you rightly say, Mansfield has now been dubbed an HMO hotspot. There's one report case of a cul-de-sac just outside the town centre where we are this morning, where 8 of the 10 properties have been converted into housing of multiple occupation. Of course, earlier in the programme, we were outside a different building, which used to be a bar here in the town centre, which has just also been granted permission to convert into an HMO for 6 people. Now, earlier this morning, we got the opportunity to speak to the MP for Mansfield, Steve Yem. He's been calling for a crackdown on the number of HMOs that are being allowed here in Mansfield, allowed by the council. He has the council to blame. I asked him what he's doing to help support local residents. Here's what he had to say.
Well, look, the really important thing, I think, is that we have more stringent planning controls over the development on those residential streets. And there are things that local authorities can do. They can adopt what's called an Article 4 direction. I've been calling on the council here in Mansfield to do that. It means that every one of those HMO developments on a residential street will need specific planning permission, even when they're small HMOs with just a few people in them. Right now, without that, they don't need that permission. I'm saying that the council should adopt that Article 4 direction and should make use of that planning control.
Now, since this all began, Steve was telling me that they've seen reports of increased fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, overflowing bins, and that really just a sense of Mansfield losing its once proud identity. We've been speaking to residents all morning. We'll be bringing you that later on GB News.
Sophie Reaper, thank you very much for that report from Mansfield. I mean, Cameron, of course, part of the problem why these houses are being converted into HMOs is because we have so many migrants to house. Stop the boats and you solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And they're coming to communities right across the country. They're not just being kept on the south coast of England, and it is starting to affect lots of people. And unfortunately, it does create extra problems like the overflowing bins and all the rest of it. And that's just, the bare minimum of annoyances for the locals. So you can see why they're up in arms.
Absolutely. Well, in other news, shocking story this really, 51 cows were killed by the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs Humane Slaughter Team in County Tyrone after a court order required the removal of animals belonging to a farmer who had been disqualified for keeping livestock. Well, what's so astonishing about this, as our reporter Doogie Beattie will explain, is that it seems to have been done in full view of the public. Doogie, over to you.
Yes, it does. In full view of the public is correct. And the Minister has made things worse by saying that the humane team basically used 1 bullet per animal. I tell you what, I'm a right good shot, and I would find it hard to hit 51 cattle moving over 30 acres of land, and every single shot is a kill shot. In fact, I've just spoke to an eyewitness who has told me, and there is video footage of it, that one animal, a bull, was shot, went down on its knees, and then walked in again, and they shot it up behind the ear. That's 2 bullets. So he has many questions to answer here. And of course, they went in to remove the animals, not kill them, because these were very, very healthy animals indeed. And I showed a video to one of Northern Ireland's top pedigree animal breeders, David Gibson, and asked him to assess what he's seen.
Been 2 clips of the cattle. The cattle that were moved off the farm a few days beforehand. These are prime cattle. They have a condition score of 5, and they're in absolutely excellent condition. And I think any farmer would be pleased to show them to any of his neighbours, or indeed show them at the local market. Unfortunately, the other clip that we've seen was the cattle, breeding cattle in the field that had been slaughtered. And I would say these are excellent condition for breeding, with a condition score of around 3 to 4, which both are absolutely excellent. Those prime cattle moved off beforehand, £3,000, and the cattle that were the breeding cattle, anywhere between £2,500 and £5,000 per breeding outfit. £6,000 some cattle recently exchanged hands for at the local market.
Well, you can see there the waste here, never mind the lives of the animals, and it was meant to be done on welfare. The department actually did a worse job on the welfare than the original farmer did. You can argue that because his cattle were actually in very good condition. But when the public sector are struggling for money, why they didn't take those cattle, confiscate them, put them into the mart, and sell them off for £3,000 to £6,000 a head, probably £150,000 that could have went back into the DAERA department. Nobody knows why that didn't happen. Of course, the Minister is saying that it wasn't fit for the food chain because there was no traceability. We know that is also untrue, because 3 of the calves that escaped, one of them with bullet holes through its neck, entry and exit wound, is now being looked after by another farmer and is in that herd. So there is traceability, and as breeding stock they could have been well used, and they were very healthy cattle. Katrina Godfrey, the Permanent Secretary, has some serious questions to answer here on Monday when the Northern Ireland Agricultural Committee is meeting in Stormont, and farmers will be there in numbers.
Doogie Beattie, thank you very much for bringing us that report there. Well, Northern Ireland's Minister of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, Andrew Muir, said, my department were obliged by a court order on the 6th of June to dispose of these animals with immediate effect. Officials are always open to feedback as part of a process.
Well, moving on, it is 11:16 and time now for the Great British Giveaway. You have just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win £60,000 in cash and a gold bar in our Golden Summer celebration. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
Welcome to Orlis Santi by Domes Resorts. I'm in one of their beautiful sea view rooms. Luxurious, right? And there's just 2 weeks left to see how you too could be enjoying the 5-star lifestyle. There's over £65,000 in cash and gold to be won. First, you can bank an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. That's cash you could save, spend the rest of the year spending, or just relax somewhere like here, the award-winning Soma Spa. We'll also give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Just make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 21st of August.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of luck with that. And next, we'll be revealing the RAF's secret weapon to keeping pilots flying for longer. And it's really not what you think. We'll give you a clue. It's about the need for speed.
We'll be going through that and much more with Ben Bradshaw and Mark Field. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I did not write that.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes past 11. This is Britain's Newsroom with Cameron and Olivia.
And we're joined now by the former Conservative MP Mark Field and the former Labour Minister Sir Ben Bradshaw. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming into Britain's Newsroom to talk to us this morning. And Ben, I'm going to start with you in this story about the early release scheme. You just said, just before we went on air, that this is the first big test for Andy Burnham, and I think that is absolutely right. He said that he was going to keep going with this early release scheme. Then he said that some people were going to be exempted from it. Now he's trying to sort of hedge his bets a little bit. Do you think we're heading for a massive U-turn?
I hope not, because I think that would show that Andy Burnham is not
prepared to take really tough decisions. You know, you have to go back to the inheritance that Labour had when we came in, prisons in crisis. There would have had to be emergency releases. We set up the Gort Commission under one of Mark's former Conservative ministerial colleagues, did a very good job of work, in my view, about what you do with the prison crisis, both in the short and the long term. That he made those recommendations. And I was worried. I mean, I think Andy Burnham has had a very positive start as the new Labour leader, but one of the criticisms that has often been made of him in the past is he doesn't like to take difficult decisions. And so this, for me, is a test. Is he prepared to stand firm against the massive media campaign, the campaign from opposition parties saying you've got to do something about this? Incidentally, none of them are explaining what they would do and how they would avoid the chaos of emergency releases. And so, for me, I think I hope he stands firm. There may be a case for twiddling around on the edges with some of the categories, but as soon as you change the rules for one category, you're going to get other people. Nobody likes prisoners being released early, but nobody's explaining what the alternative is.
Yeah, no, I think Ben's absolutely right about that. I mean, there is a simplicity about having a blanket ban. And once you start saying, well, we're going to make some exceptions to this, then obviously at the margins there's a problem. And dare I say it, the particular problem is the Andrew Harper issue, where you have a very photogenic grieving widow, you have a very plausible and articulate mother making the case. To be honest, I've given a bit of thought to this, and the other thought in my mind is this. Let's go one step forward. Let's say that these two thugs are released from prison. They're going to be marked men. I suspect there are going to be vigilante gangs who will be trying to search them out. We look at what's been happening in the last 3 nights in somewhere like Thetford. And if that comes to pass, then I think their security is going to be very much a risk. They're going to be sort of beaten to pulp or worse. And that actually does provide an opportunity, I think, for the Ministry of Justice to make an exception, to say, because of the security and the stability for these particular prisoners, they are not going to be safe to be let out. And to allow some sort of wriggle room within the context of this. Now, it will be wriggle room, which will be the high-profile media cases, but nonetheless, I think that provides wriggle room which then avoids having to jettison the entire policy and to make a bit of a mockery of it.
And just to explain to our audience, PC Andrew Harper is the murdered PC who was dragged along by the car. One was done for murder, the 2 done for manslaughter are potentially up for early release. But there's a wider issue here where Andy Burnham's hands are kind of tied because there isn't any prison places left. And you're not going to build prisons in the short term, if at all. So what can he do other than the early release scheme?
Well, I think all he can do is sound apologetic and sounds as if he understands people's anger at this, and explain, and perhaps do a better job of explaining than Keir Starmer was able to do, why this is necessary. Because you're right. I mean, the government has now embarked on the biggest prison building programme for a generation, but that's going to take time. And the alternative to having an organised, ordered prisoner release scheme is to have a disorganised, disordered emergency release scheme, and that will end up causing a lot more bad headlines for the government than the current difficulty and challenges that it's facing.
I mean, because this issue has run on for a long time. I mean, listen, it obviously predates this government. It goes well back into the Conservative times, and people were saying a decade ago that this had reached crisis point, and therefore there is the issue. You can keep things going, but the other problem is you're not properly rehabilitating prisoners, and once prisoners are coming out, then they're going to be an increasing danger to the public.
We've had successive sentence inflation in this country, often as a result of media campaigns for a particular crime, but we haven't built the prison places to accommodate all the people we're putting away.
But Ben, you talk about a controlled early release being more sensible, and I can see that, than an uncontrolled early release scheme. When this happened back in 2024, this first swathe of prisoners who were released early, it didn't seem very controlled at all, and there were cases where the probation services just weren't ready. There were people who were reoffending and being back in prison, I think, within 48 hours. Is there any indication that this swathe of prisoners being released early will be sort of better controlled?
I think so, because that's exactly what the David Gort review looked at after that rather chaotic initial early release scheme. What do you do to make sure you've got the tagging in place, the probation services in place, a lot of big investment, new investment going into the probation service. But that's what the government's needed 2 years to get in place in time for this early release scheme, so that we don't have the repeat of those kind of scenes you saw back in 2024.
Let's move on to a slightly unusual story regarding the Royal Air Force and its latest weapon against making sure that pilots don't have to finish work too early. What's this all about?
Well, this might appear as a sort of bit of a namby-pamby issue with RAF pilots needing neck massages, but actually there's a serious point here in that RAF pilots, because of the Russian threat and all of the stuff that's going on in Europe with Russian operations, are having to spend a lot more time in the air than they ever did before, and wearing these very, very heavy and uncomfortable helmets and headgear does put a lot of strain on their neck. And as you know, any sports person or anyone who's doing a physical activity will know, physio is an important part of how you cope with doing those sorts of jobs. So I don't think this should cause any outrage. I mean, I'm glad that they're getting the attention that they need to make sure that they can carry on keeping us safe.
So this isn't a recreational neck massage, then? It's medical.
I don't think it will actually, fun enough, if you've ever watched Formula One, the pressures they're under, the G-forces, even for a 2-hour Formula One race, are enormous. And that applies. And, of course, we've got relatively few properly qualified jet pilots. And so listen, I think it is. I mean, it's one of those things that you can write it in a slightly jocular tone, as though somehow this isn't serious. Ultimately, I guess in bygone era, you just got on and did the job, and that's what we need to do. We need to look after our pilots. And I'm afraid, the world we're living in, particularly with the nature of the threat, this is not going to be something that's going to go away. And I suspect the pressures they're going to be under, not just the pressure for their neck, but the pressure, just the amount of time they're going to be spending in the air, is only going to go higher and higher.
And as we often talk about on GB News, part of the problem is that the armed forces are just not what they were 10 years ago. We don't have as many pilots as we did. We don't have as many soldiers. We don't have as many sailors as we did. Is there a sort of concerted effort now within the Labour government to fix that? I mean, Andy Burnham sounds more serious about.
Well, this is going to be another big test, isn't it, in the autumn coming up, along with the budget, as to how he funds and the defence review and how we make a path towards reaching the NATO target for spending. But I mean, I think he's completely committed to the defence of Ukraine and the defence of our democratic values, and he will make sure that money is there for the modernisation of our armed forces to face the challenges that they now face, as we've seen in Ukraine, are very different from the traditional military challenges that armed forces have faced.
But those challenges will be drones, and it is, as you say, manpower. Getting an army that is fit for purpose, getting our navy up to scratch. But the reality is, and again, we have wasted so much money in relation to defence procurement, appalling procurement decisions by, and again, a succession of government ministers and indeed senior MOD advisors there. We need to make sure, as in every other sector of the economy, that it's not just splurging a lot of money in a particular direction, but making sure it is spent wisely. And I think, again, looking at niche things such as drone technology, which are playing an increasingly important part in warfare, but, as you say, getting our headcount up as far as our armed services are concerned.
All of which, of course, is really expensive. And John Healey, in his former role as Defence Secretary, resigned because Starmer wouldn't give him the money he needed. Now that he's Chancellor, is he committing to giving the money he believes is necessary for defence?
He hasn't so far committed to giving the money he was asking for as defence.
Well, no, which is confusing me.
Well, exactly. So you may well find that with the Chancellor's hat on, he has a rather different approach. But the government has had the biggest increase in defence spending since the Cold War. It's committed to meeting the NATO target, but we still haven't had a clear explanation from the government as to how it's going to do that. And I suspect that's one of the things that we might see in the budget.
He will be looking for value for money, but I think the other thing that we may well be moving towards the idea of having some sort of defence bond. In other words, trying to find a mechanism of structuring that is outside the fiscal rules, but takes account of the fact that we have a 20 or 30 rule. It is absolutely right, but I suspect that's the way they will try to square the circle.
Gosh, a lot left to be decided at that budget. £4.9 billion black hole to be filled, rather them than me. So thank you very much to former Conservative MP Mark Field and former Labour Minister Sir Ben Bradshaw for joining us this morning.
Thank you both. The time is 11:31, and here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. In other news, more arrests have been made over disorder linked to anti-immigration protests that saw crowds attempt to storm the homes of suspected asylum seekers, and a police officer was seriously bitten. 9 people wounded in a school shooting in Thailand today are in critical condition, the country's Prime Minister has said. 7 others have died. England footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Met investigation. The 30-year-old was charged with assault causing actual bodily harm following an incident at a Soho nightclub. He'll appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 24th of September. Those are the latest headlines. More at 12 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, up next is Good Afternoon Britain with Mark and Dawn. Dawn, good morning. How are you feeling after not much sleep? We were both at the 5-year party in Essex last night.
And it was lovely. And you know what, Cameron, the best thing about it was to see so many lovely GB News viewers and listeners and talk to... So if you were there last night, thank you so much for coming. It was lovely to talk to you. And that's the highlight of my night, was just wandering around, talking to everybody about what they like about GB News and sort of like, you know, what we should do more of. So for me, that was the highlight of the entire night. But it was fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
It certainly was, and yeah, good celebration.
And you on the side of the stage, a little flag. I love it.
Yeah, little flag. Been here since the start. It was great, and Patrick Christie did a great job at hosting.
Patrick did, absolutely, because I mean it's not easy to do a live show like that. So fair play to Patrick. He did an amazing job, and I think he was a little bit nervous as well. So good for him.
Good. Well, what's coming up on Good Afternoon Britain?
Okay. Well, I will.
Where's Mark?
Okay, well done for noticing.
Yes.
Trained observer.
Yes.
No, Mark is, as we speak, hot-footing it from Dover, where he's been monitoring the latest migrant crossings. So we'll have a very good exclusive from Mark on that. On obviously more boats coming over today. What we're doing about it, which doesn't sound to be that much. And obviously the word of the day is foreign, because on most of the front papers, fraud over loans to foreign students, and then sort of like foreign nationals face social housing ban under the Tories. So we are discussing both of those stories, clamping down on migration as well. And we are also going to go to Thetford live and talk more about that story, which is frankly scary. But, you know, one of the things I did discover last night is that people are angry.
Yeah.
People are angry and they are scared.
They really are.
And angry, scared people don't always behave that rationally. But it is time we actually started listening to people and find out, you know, what we can do to stop this situation and calm people. And we've got a great debate as well, because our Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, has come out and said that Muslims are treated as second-class citizens. Try being a girl, Sadiq. So we are having a debate about whether Muslims are indeed treated like second-class citizens, with 2 Muslims who violently disagree on this one, so you don't want to miss that.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, don't go anywhere, because that is all up at midday. But up next, we'll have the latest from Thetford in Norfolk, where there have been 3 nights of violent anti-migrant protests, where one female officer was seriously bitten.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather forecast, coming to you from the Met Office. Now, through the rest of today, there's still going to be rain across far northern parts, but elsewhere it's looking largely sunny and temperatures are rising as we head into the weekend. We have high pressure firmly in control across southern areas, but further north there are tighter packed isobars bringing some blustery winds and fronts bringing some outbreaks of rain, particularly to northern, northwestern parts of Scotland, some central parts of Scotland having some wet weather as well. Like I said though, most other areas staying dry with lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine temperatures rising a few degrees higher than yesterday. We're looking at highs around 25-26 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed here. Further north and west temperatures a few degrees lower than this, but still warm if you're out of the breeze and in any sunshine. More cloud, more rain to come across central and northern parts of Scotland through this evening. Aberdeenshire perhaps holding on to some clear, bright weather for a little while longer, but even here cloud will push through overnight. Cloudy but mostly dry across southern Scotland. Largely fine for Northern Ireland with some late evening sunshine, and a similar story then across the bulk of England and Wales. Worth bearing in mind, overnight there could be some pockets of mist and fog around, but they're looking pretty shallow, shouldn't cause any major problems. It is, however, going to be a bit of a fresh night with clear skies, allowing temperatures to drop mid-single figures perhaps in some rural spots of England and Wales, but generally many towns and cities will hold up in double digits. And later in the night, we're going to see a bit of cloud, a bit of rain pushing to parts of Northern Ireland, as well as the wet weather that continues across northwestern parts of Scotland. Through tomorrow, then, it is going to be fairly cloudy and wet towards the northwest of the UK. More central, southern and eastern parts staying dry, a mixture of a bit of cloud at times, some bright sunny weather as well. And with that sunshine, then temperatures rising even higher than today, likely to be the first day of another heatwave for some.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
How can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 10:38 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Cameron and Olivia.
A total of 5 people have been arrested after a third night of disorder linked to an anti-immigration protest in the Norfolk town of Thetford.
Yes, a female police officer was seriously bitten while crowds allegedly tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers following damage to properties the previous night.
Well, police have now stepped up their presence and introduced additional powers in the town. And this morning, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police defended his force's actions as some accused his officers of acting too aggressively.
Well, we're joined now by GB News' national reporter Jack Carson live from Thetford. Jack, it looks like a nice, calm, sunny morning in Thetford for now, but what can we expect over the next few days?
Well, certainly the police will be on the lookout for any intelligence they can get about whether disorder is to continue over the next coming days. The places that have been targeted by this group of people seems to be houses of multiple occupancy, which are some of which are believed to be housing asylum seekers. Now, this is one of the properties behind me which was subject to some of that disorder. Here on Wednesday night, 200 people were here. Many of them peacefully protesting. A group of people, though, taking different kinds of action, such as throwing eggs at this window. You can see here, of course, on the floor, the dried out yolk now and the eggshells still on the floor and on the windowsill. One of these windows has been smashed as well because of the disorder and the damage that's been done to this property. As you rightly saying, both of you, this is also the property in the area where that police officer was described as being seriously bitten. Other officers were also taken to hospital as a result of responding to protests and disorder that broke out here in the last 48 hours or so. But it's not just in this location, other sites as well across Thetford. It's all kind of linking in to tension, really, that's been in the area over the Ministry of Defence site at Barnham, just over a mile away from here, which is planned by the Home Office to be housing asylum seekers as the government continue their mission to move illegal immigrants out of hotels and into these former military bases. There's been a lot of protesting in the past few months about that proposal, so tension already in the area over asylum seekers being moved into the area, and of course that then boiling over in the past 72 hours. One of the properties we visited this morning had been boarded up because of windows being smashed and that property being damaged. We spoke to Lorraine, who lives next door to that property. Take a listen to what she told us earlier on.
I heard stuff before I went to bed. Let the dogs bark, because that's what I do. and then went to bed and took my hearing aids out. And to be fair, I don't hear a great deal. But no, I didn't hear that much. I didn't hear the windows smashing. The next thing I knew was the police were knocking on my door saying, could they look at the doorbell camera?
Yeah.
So no, I didn't hear a humongous amount of hassle.
And of course, the resident there, Lorraine, also telling us that she does feel for the safety of herself if that house next to her was to continue to be developed into a house of multiple occupants. We've heard a lot about these, haven't we, in the news and around the country, with many of these being developed in areas. There is a sense in this community that while they may or not have had any trouble from the residents that were in this property, that the police say they've now moved out of the town for the time being. There is a sense in general about the use of houses of multiple occupancy, certainly their location in this area, what that may risk then to the safety of women and girls in the area. That is what a lot of the protesters that police say were largely peaceful over the past 48 hours, whether it was a protest that was taking place outside the police station or even in areas like this where the disorder subsequently took place. There is a lot of genuine concerns about the plans here. We're not far from a school. These are tight-knit communities where everyone seems to know each other and look out for each other, and there are worries there about the impact on their communities if these properties were to be used to house those asylum seekers. So that gives you a sense really of where the tension is in areas like this. But certainly over the next few hours and looking ahead to the weekend, Norfolk Police will be having those resources on standby ready if any more disorder was to break out over the next coming days.
OK, Jack Carson live in Thetford for us. Thank you.
Well, up next, it's 100 years since the first ever British Grand Prix was held at the Brooklands Oval Circuit in Surrey. Will Godley is there for us.
100 years ago today, this would have been the start-finish straight of what was the first ever Grand Prix in Britain. This weekend, the track is being filled with Grand Prix cars over the last 100 years, and we're here celebrating what British motorsports has done for the country. All of that coming up in just a few minutes' time. First, though, let's have a look at what the weather's doing in Europe.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
4 heat waves, weeks without meaningful rain. As the UK heads towards one of its hottest summers on record, the pressure is showing here in Sussex, in the fruit growing across these fields.
Well, the impact of the heat is already visible here. This local grower says that if these extreme temperatures continue, this year's harvest may well be smaller in size.
I don't think there's been another period like this in the history. 3 years ago, we had a tremendous heat wave in the middle of harvest. We were unable to get the fruit to cool down quickly enough. The following year we had a very, very light crop, and the same again this year.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's only all-female chess team, called She Plays to Win, has been promoted to the game's top division, only to be told they must recruit a male player to compete. Now, league rules require every First Division team to include at least one male and one female player, meaning that one of the team's female players could lose her place. I'm joined in the studio by the She Plays to Win chess players, Anusha and Alicia. Great to see you both this afternoon.
Thank you for
So
having us.
sorry about what's going on. You've been promoted, but you might have to lose one of your teammates. What's going on here?
So essentially we have fallen victim to this rule that She Plays to Win, our team, has been promoted to the first division in our league, but now must have a male player as part of the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, that drought is due to long periods, record periods actually, with no rainfall and high temperatures. The areas that are affected, as you say, over half of England, half of the UK affected by that. The areas being East Anglia, Hertfordshire, the whole of London, Thames Valley, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Devon and Cornwall, the West Midlands and Wessex, covering Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire and Gloucestershire. So a huge area impacted by that drought. There is also that amber heat health alert still in place here. That's in place until tomorrow. And temperatures today in the south could reach up to 35 degrees. So people here in Bognor Regis coming to the coast to cool down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and Britain's first Grand Prix is marking its 100th anniversary with 2 days of celebrations.
Well, the original event took place in 1926 at the Brooklands Race Circuit in Surrey, where only 3 out of the 9 cars actually finished the race.
And our incredibly hard-working reporter, Will Godley, who presented breakfast this morning, is in Surrey to report for us. Will, what's going on?
Well, it's incredibly exciting. Good morning to you both. Yeah, this is Brooklands. It's now a museum, but 100 years ago today, it was a fully fledged racetrack hosting what was the first ever Grand Prix to be held in Britain. Where I'm standing right now, in fact, on this very concrete that I'm standing on, was the start-finish straight. Now, though, racing not happening here anymore. It's a museum, and so many cars from over the last 100 years are here to take part in what is a 100-year celebration of British motorsport. The original Grand Prix started at 2 o'clock today, 100 years ago, and now motor racing looks very different. Mark joins me now, one of the curators here. Mark, how come you wanted to bring all the cars here for this celebration?
Well, why not? It's 100 years since we had our very first Grand Prix. It was here at Brooklands. This is where it all started, the Brooklands Museum. We're standing here on the finishing straight with a variety of cars from across the years. It's an amazing point in time. 100 years of Grand Prix racing. It's still as popular now as it was then. Things have changed. We're going to tell the story of that this weekend, and it's just fantastic to be here with all of these cars. It's an amazing history lesson of how motorsport has changed, yet the enthusiasm is still here. We've still got parts of the original Grand Prix circuit here where it was held, as I say, a couple of hours from now, 100 years ago.
And what was racing like back then? Because we're stood next to what is the sister car that won 100 years ago. It looks very different to how Formula One cars look in the present day. Just what was racing like back then?
Oh, it was very different then. So the Grand Prix here, we had 9 cars in the race, only 3 finished. This is the sister car to the winning Delage. And you'll see from the cars here, you can see how motor racing has changed. In those days, they used to do a lot more driver changes. They had leather cloth hats. They had goggles on. Now they've got full fireproof overalls, full face helmets. It's very, very different now. And it was much more risky in those days. And as the years went on, motor racing became dangerous because speeds got higher, the safety wasn't quite there, but then the safety came in, and now the cars are incredibly safe. When you see an accident today, if that type of accident back then in 26, you wouldn't be here. So it has changed in many, many ways, but these are fantastic cars, and we've got a real story from that early 1926 right up to 2026.
And just looking out here, we can see how motor racing and the cars themselves have evolved over the last century. Just what an institution is British motor racing, motorsports for this country? Why is it worth celebrating?
Well, I think motorsport in the UK is massive. We've got Motorsport Valley across the Midlands. Every Formula One team, present-day Formula One team, is based in the UK or has a base in the UK. We've got tremendous knowledge, we've got tremendous skill in this country, and it's shown by the fact that we've got loads of British teams here from the past, present, and it just shows that we can create some fantastic racing cars. Doesn't matter what year it is, they all tell a fabulous story of how they pushed the boundaries, no matter what was happening at that point in time. You know, that you can see that looking along this first row of cars here. You can see that change. We've even got a six-wheeler that they experimented with. So, you know, there's all sorts.
Amazing. Mark, lots to get into this weekend. Thank you very much for joining us on GB News. What promises to be a huge weekend of celebrating British motorsports here at Brooklands. I've just seen them unload Lando Norris's car. I might go and see if I can get in that.
Will Godley, thank you very much for that. Yeah, see if you can drive around. That would be great. What a trooper. It is amazing, isn't it? Great British motorsport, 100 years. I can't believe it's 100 years.
100 years. And it's so fascinating that story we were hearing there from that guest about how the safety came in later, and now you've got both the speed and you've got the safety. So it's fantastic to watch, and it's not too dangerous.
Absolutely. And it's also fascinating watching a Formula One or a Grand Prix where the engineers are so quick at changing the tyres and things like that. Their skill is absolutely incredible. But that's it from us, me and Olivia, on Britain's Newsroom. Up next, we have the very lovely Dawn Newson, and Mark White will be here with an exclusive.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome to your GB News weather update, coming to you from the Met Office. Now, there is some rain again across northern parts of Scotland today, but further south it's another dry day with lots of sunshine on offer. We just need to watch out for a few showers across western parts of England and Wales at the moment. They will push a little bit further eastwards this morning before largely fizzling out. So then by the afternoon, mostly dry for England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern parts of Scotland. Much wetter across central and northern parts of Scotland with some blustery winds as well. Temperatures are generally going to be up a degree or so compared to yesterday in the southeast. We're looking at highs of around 25 or 26 Celsius. High teens, perhaps low 20s for some parts towards the north. There's more wet weather to come across northern Scotland through the end of the day. We are going to see some relatively high rainfall totals building up through today and into tomorrow, particularly around the northern and western Isles and the Highlands as well. Central, southern, eastern parts of Scotland drier here with a largely fine end to the day across Northern Ireland, and for England and Wales a fine picture too. Lots of clear skies through this evening, so some late sunshine, yes, but with that clear sky we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a drop overnight away from the northwest where it stays quite cloudy and there will be some rain. Even across parts of Northern Ireland, cloud will push in as we head towards dawn and we could see a bit of rain arriving here. Otherwise, yes, with that dry, clear weather, it is going to be a fresh night. Some rural spots in England and Wales could get as low as 4 or 5 Celsius tonight, so perhaps even a bit chilly for some of us first thing tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, yes, a fresh start to the day, but again, lots of sunshine across England and Wales. Further north and west for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture. The heaviest, most persistent rain still across northern and western parts of Scotland, with those totals continuing to build up. In the southeast, it's going to be hotter than today. We're seeing temperatures back in the high 20s. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised!
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and